Thanks, and thanks everyone for joining. I see we have quite a crowd already with 34 people and counting. Yeah, my name is Matthias Wiedler. I'm with Deep Instinct for a year, running the EMEA team, building it up. I'm in cybersecurity then more than 20 years. I always realize how old I am when I say that sentence. So time flies. I helped building up in the very early days Kaspersky in the European market. Worked for Cisco and Blue Coat. He did the SASE business at Palo Alto for EMEA, and was especially the biggest achievement so far was help to build up Zscaler from a very small company to a big one. So I'm usually working for startups and help building them up when I love the technology. And before I go into a presentation, an interesting story about the people working for Deep Instinct. So our CEO, Lane Bass, is the first CEO of Palo Alto, employee number 14. He was the first COO of Zscaler, probably employee number 10 or 11, something like this, and one of the first investors in a Zscaler. And in between, he retired. He retired after Palo Alto for obvious reasons. He retired after Zscaler a second time. And then he saw which massive shift is happening now, right? First, the shift to next generation application-based security with Apollo, then the shift into the cloud and into decentralized internet, basically where security was needed with a Zscaler. And now he joined the 61-year-old retired CEO. He has his own island with Oprah Winfrey, and he said it's getting too boring. And why I'm saying that, right? Because he made two companies very big, and he has such a belief in what we are doing here and in the shift in security, which is happening right now, or which has to happen, that he joined as a CEO for and investor into Deep Instinct 18 months ago. I want to share with you today what we do and where we are from my point of view from the security in the security world. I think we start a bit with the developments over the last 15 years. As I said, I helped building up Kaspersky more than 20 years ago, and interesting part is back then people had a bit of URL filtering, they had a firewall, and when they had then hourly antivirus updates, and back then Kaspersky was the first one introducing it, if I remember correctly, customers were basically prevented. Yeah, they had a few other tools, but in the end, they had a kind of prevention when they had their signatures updated and their systems updated. So lots of mega trends happen and companies build up in different areas. We talked about Zscaler, we talked CrowdStrike, for example, when it was clear that the threats are getting more and more sophisticated. So lots of things happened. Companies got big with that. But what is interesting, this is now a new phase, right? A new phase is generative AI attacks. They are very targeted, very focused. Almost everyone can build them up. And currently, there is not really an answer to it, or there has not been an answer till now. And this is especially what we do. We help customers to address that trend. And actually, as a security industry, we must say we have failed over the last 20 years, because what I said initially, you had a proper antivirus, you had a firewall, a few other things, and you were actually protected, right? Your anti-spam solutions back in the days. But now, 20 years later, customers are spending way more money for security. They have way more products for this security. They have way more stuff for security, like for Security Operations Center. They create logs like crazy, which makes Splunk and other logging vendors very, very happy. And in the end, the attacks we detect, what we really prevent, actually went down. We even went to a situation where Gartner doesn't talk anymore about prevention. They call the Magic Quadrant detection and response. So that basically means we have given up on preventing. We just say, oh, shit happens, right? Let's just try to minimize the damage. And I usually have the analogy with a nightclub, right? You have a nightclub, some nice dance club, and you have an 80-year-old guy at the door, right? Half blind, and probably falling asleep while doing the work at 2 o'clock in the morning. So if that's the case, and this is actually what EDR is nowadays, and it's getting worse with generative AI, then you need in the dance club 20, 30 people to kick out basically the ones which went in and should not be in the club. So instead of having a good gatekeeper, you focus completely on kicking people out of a club. And I think it's the same with our network. We don't try even to keep the stuff out of it. We just try to minimize it. I know the statement is a bit provocative and it's not 100% accurate, but I just wanna make clear that's in general the direction we are heading, and this is where we actually are, which is not ideal. And Palo Alto lost $30 billion in stock valuation this week, and Nikesh Arora seems to be a marketing spokesperson for us now, the CEO of Palo Alto, because he's basically saying the same. They want a more bang for the buck. They say they don't want to have a platform, or the platforms even Palo Alto is providing doesn't go deep enough. And if you read the full statements and comments he made over the last couple of days, he basically said that there needs to be something to fight against the generated AI threats. What Nikesh probably doesn't know, that already exists. And it already works for years very, very successfully. And together with that technology, we are bringing that technology now to you in the CE markets. Talking a bit about AI, because AI is everything and nothing. It's like cloud. What is a cloud, right? Sometimes someone is putting a server in a data center, is calling it cloud. It might be rather a managed service, but everything and nothing is a cloud. And it's the same with basically AI. So I want to give a bit of an overview where the situation is. So first of all, AI is already kind of machine learning, or going one step back. When we talk about threat detection, it's all started with detecting signatures. So a signature is basically, most of you know, but I repeat it just to be sure. You look in a data stream, and if you see a match between a part of the data stream and basically the threat you already detected, then you know, aha, this is basically the same line of code. I have to block it. That's what the origin of virus scanning basically. It then evolved to heuristics, which is basically to detect variants of it. Then sandboxings came into play to kind of pretend the solution is in a safe environment and the threat can get out of his snail house basically and execute itself. And then machine learning came around. Machine learning is also basically is already called AI. And machine learning basically, you program it to detect a few things. You tell, for example, this is how a dog looks. This is how a cat looks. So you also can say, this is how a threat looks. That worked for some time quite okay, but it has a false positive rate of 1.2%. A false positive is a wrong alarm when you say it's a threat and it isn't, and 1 to 2% is pretty high. And the accuracy is getting worse. And why is that not good enough? It's only as good as I can program it, because machine learning, I have to program, not as a customer or a partner, but the engineer has to program it, and the engineer has to constantly adapt it to new situations in the market. And there is those famous pictures, you might have seen it. Is it a dog or is it a muffin? If you zoom big enough into a dog's face, it might look like a muffin, right? Depending on the dog for sure. So how would you describe a machine learning algorithm what a cat is? What a difference between a cat and a dog is? Because, they both have a tail, they have 4 legs, you cannot write, oh, the cat might be cuter or the dog might be bigger. You can, but it's pretty difficult then to detect that on a picture. So the fallbacks of machine learning are it's pretty resource intense, and The other issue is it's only as good as you can program it. And it needs to be constantly adapted. And all current solutions in the market to have a somehow okay detection and response, I'm not talking about prevention, they use all the technologies I combined together. Sandboxing, signatures, heuristic, machine learning, few other things. And that all together, because it's very resource intense, they say, oh, you know what? I don't do it on my endpoint anymore. I do it straight in the cloud because then I don't impact endpoint performance. The official reason they say they have cloud intelligence, but in reality, that is partially true. But the main reason is the endpoint would not be usable anymore. So that creates a situation where you transfer all files to a cloud. That creates a situation where you have a cloud latency. That means it takes time to send it to the cloud and back. And it's still, as we see, not good enough. 50 to 70% accuracy of detection. So what basically Deep Instinct developed from the scratch is we developed a deep learning framework. So this is an own neural network, which is self-learning. It doesn't need any updates. It doesn't need any upgrades. It learns on the machine by itself. It has an incredibly high accuracy, especially detecting threats you never saw. Because this is based on a deep learning framework we built by our own and patented. Many large companies tried already to buy us, even if it's massive technology companies, because they couldn't rebuild that by themselves. And with that technology, we are able to detect threats, ransomware, unknown threats, stuff which has never seen ever in the wild in any customer environment, without any updates and upgrades. And what we really do is predictive prevention, not detection and response. What is the difference? A predictive prevention can foresee that this is a threat, even if it never has looked like one. And prevention means we basically are in a situation where we prevent the execution of it. If you use an EDR solution or most endpoint solutions, they would write a file to a disk, and when you open it, they would send it to cloud for analysis. We go always in the data stream, detect it, identify it, prevent it. We prevent the execution. We are the guys at the door who basically can mind read what's going on in a person who wants to enter the dance club, and then we don't let them in. And that makes a totally different approach because it reduces massively your logging, because if you identify something, you don't need to log it. It reduces the SOC efforts dramatically. It requires way less configuration because it's very smart compared to all EDR or traditional endpoint solutions. And the best, it really works. Also, the prevention part is provable working. We can, for example, do that in a proof of concept where we go online with a solution, put it in a sandbox, put it in a VMware. We shut the internet connection down for a week, and then we shoot the latest threats against it from VirusTotal. And then you basically can see how the interaction is and how massive that is. Especially, you can benchmark your current solution like this if you like and see how much better we do. And that technology is faster in scanning, way faster. The system load is way lower, less than 1% compared to most endpoints, which are at 20 to 27%. It has a massive accuracy and a very low false positive rate. One difference I want to make, because now when you're going on the websites of all security vendors, they all say they do deep learning. That is true and wrong at the same time, because what all those vendors do is they use ChatGPT and they use it to automate kind of some operations part of it. But no vendor in the world out there is capable of detecting a threat with a detection-based, own-developed, a deep learning engine. And that's actually the only thing you can achieve with us and the highest level of security. It's trusted by customers like, for example, Citibank, like Barclays, like ministries of defense of several countries, but also from companies outside of the high security space, just to provide a high level of security. Digging a bit into what we really do and what we don't do. So we have that deep instinct brain. It's an own neural network, self-learning. No matter where you have it installed, it basically works by itself, doesn't need updates and upgrades. There is agentless solutions and there is agent-based solution. Agentless basically for all data and motion scanning, and there is solution which are agent-based, which I dig now a bit deeper into it. If you have questions, feel free to add them in the question session. And I think, Andres, you might pick that up, right, if there is any questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So at the moment, actually, there is one question, but I think that we will just leave it for the questions and answer session so that you can continue right now.
You interrupt me if the question fits to what I talk right now, and I'm more than happy then to
well, generally speaking, the question is about how is the difference between generative artificial intelligence and what Deep Instinct is doing.
Yeah, so a generative AI basically is really based, it's more a text-based tool and an automation tool, right? You feed it with a lot of information about a lot of topics, but what you don't do, you don't feed it with files. You don't train it especially on thread files. And this is what you cannot do with a ChatGPT. And this is actually what we developed, and this is our secret sauce. So we trained our brain with billions of clean files, with billions of infected files. And that way we really have a situation where we are capable of preventing. Imagine you would ask ChatGPT, will Putin drop an atomic bomb? You know the answer? They would say, I don't know, right? If I translate that questions into security, so is this a threat? Well, ChatGPT doesn't know because it's not trained on it. What ChatGPT can do is it can help you automate similarity, identify similarities. It can automate some operations task in the SOC, right? But it is not capable of looking into different set of files and say which is a threat and which isn't. And this is why actually when security vendors say they do deep learning, it's actually not true, because they don't do deep learning based threat detection or prevention. They just do automation. So they go into it and say, okay, how can I offload work from the SOC? Or how, if this file is really like this file, then probably you can delete it. But it's all not in any way related to any intelligence ChatGPT has based to really deep security knowledge. And that's actually the situation, and this is what we do. So it's really an own developed framework. Basically, it's ChatGPT for cybersecurity, and it's specifically developed for this. And the guys developed it is basically were part in developing the Iron Dome for Israel, for example, etc. Very smart team of people. It's very difficult to develop because you needed PhDs, neuroscientologists, you need software agents, software developers, which go very deep in the code. There is a lot of knowledge needed actually to develop such a solution, and this is why no one was able to do it. And the way how we do it, we actually patented as well. So we start with an overview of the agentless solutions. Agentless solution is basically developed to scan all kinds of data in motion. It's called DPA, our solution, Deep Instinct Prevention for Applications. And imagine you have, as a financial institution, you have, for example, mortgage documents. You want to have them scanned in real time, and you want to make sure there is no threat in it. That's what we do. You might want to have a second scanner for emails, which has a way better detection rate than all scanners in the market out there, because many threats come in via email. This is what that solution does. You have a web application firewall. You want to put a scanning hub next to it. So this is an agentless solutions, which works for basically all use cases which are agentless. You just need to have a capability to connect it via ICAP or via RESTful API, and then it works. Many customers use it for third-party application access, for all kinds of file transfers. That's basically what we do here. Very flexible because it's on a Docker container, and no matter what the use case is, it can basically use. There is actually in the market hundreds of use cases out there, but the one I've written here are basically the ones which are mostly used. And why would you use that solution? Well, that you make sure the threads don't get written on your disk, on your server, and you have the data blocked in the transaction process. And also, you, for example, want to get rid of outdated sandboxing solutions because they don't detect enough, they're very slow and resource consuming. By the way, Deep Instinct doesn't need any of the other technologies I described. No machine learning, no heuristics, no sandboxing. It's all done in the brain, and that's why it's very fast. Within milliseconds, we scan, for example, for box.net, 15 billion files a month, incredibly fast. So if you want to have a fast file scanning solution, if you want to increase your security in any way in motion, this is basically the go-to solution, and it doesn't consume a lot of resources. So that is agentless scanning, whatever the use case might be. Data gateway is another use case for that. Which is actually one of the most used use cases in between block and allow the files based on how good or bad they are. Email attachments I covered also roughly already. We see that lots of threats are coming in via email attachments. We know all of you have anti-spam solutions, and all of you have virus scanners for emails because it's a must. But is that scanner good enough? Because all the technologies in the market, the first generation solutions, the detection rate is really bad. And then you have second generation solutions, even they have a way lower detection rate. And this is why many organizations say, I need a second scanner to keep my inboxes clean, because it's one of the most dangerous, still, even in 2024, one of the most successful ways of delivering attacks. And this is why many companies want to have a second email scanner. So they use what they have and they use this on top, or they just replace the scanner they have. What we don't do is actually anti-spam and those things. That's not what we do. Deep Instinct is focused on preventing threats. So we wouldn't replace any anti-spam solution, just to clearly talk about what we do and what we actually don't do. We see more and more clients are moving to cloud storage, AWS, Azure, also Google. This is also where we can help. We basically have reference architectures for AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. And since we are a very lightweight product, we don't need lots of compute to scan. This has even a direct impact on the cost of scanning on those environments. And this is where we are widely used for. So if you have AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, you want to be protected here as well. As you can see, we have a very wide set where we can help customers to be implemented. So besides of that agentless solutions for the email scanning, file sharing, AWS, Azure, Google, and others, whatever the use case might be you have in mind, we also have agent-based solutions. An agent-based solution is, for example, for network-attached storage, where we have the possibility to scan your storage devices. Currently, we do that for NetApp, natively integrated on-prem, and we do it natively on-prem for Dell EMC, and there is more to come. This is actually a market where there is almost nothing available. There is just 2-3 vendors which didn't update their products for long to deliver security for network attached storage. Their detection rates are very bad. And why is there no EDR solution? Because if you have on-prem NAS solutions, you have sensitive data. So that means you don't want to have that in the cloud. So an EDR solution lives and dies with cloud connection. So if you would try to connect an EDR solution to your NAS, it would mean that lots of files from your crown jewels, the most sensitive data, would go to the cloud. So, and this is why customers are still using outdated technology on the NAS, which is very slow. In bigger environments, they cannot even perform a full scan because they're too slow in scanning. They create lots of latency and they have a very horrible detection rate. So this is why we are here a next generation solution who does very fast scanning, full scan of your NAS or on access scan for sure, and is blocking the data, and we don't need any cloud connection. We can make it even air gapped. We need a first implementation where we have a SaaS console to connect it, but you can even air gap it. The same is true for the other solutions. So what we do here is basically you install via standard interface the Dell EMC or NetApp scanner, and then it scans incredibly fast with low latency and performs full scans, etc. One interesting fact, what we realized is when customers moved from traditional antivirus solutions to EDR solutions, they realized that the NAS had way more threats on it. Why is that? Because most EDR solutions, actually all EDR solutions, if it's a Defender, a CrowdStrike, a Sentinel, they would not inspect a file you download in the data stream. They would inspect it when you open it, unless it's getting detected via signature. So that means you download a malicious file from the internet to your laptop, and it would sit on your laptop. And only when you open it, the EDR solution would basically scan it. So that's actually sounds a bit paradox, because you think you improve your security with going to an EDR solution, but in that case, you definitely don't do. So what happens now is if you don't open the file and you move it straight to your storage and you have one of those old outdated scanners sitting there, you have no security. You have basically not detected it. So the number of threats on the NAS is exploding. So what we can offer, actually, our partners can offer that. We can do a scanning of your NetApp or Dell environment and see how many threats you have on there, what you missed. We scan a segment, look at it, and tell you how affected you are. So if you're interested, just reach out to the head colleagues or to me, and we can make that happen. So I talked already about the benefits. This is rather when we share basically the presentation graded and certified by those vendors. And the latency is a big problem, as well as the full scans, and we address that. This is basically benchmarking with competition. Now you can say, okay, I mean, everyone can put that on a slide. Yes, everyone can. But if you're interested, we have very detailed tests, and we have even anonymized tests of customers, which we can share where they tested in their environment. Interesting is especially the throughput. As you can see, it's so fast compared to others, which is very important. You need less scanning servers. The file gets delivered faster. And if you have a lot of scanning servers, this is only true for the very big customers on the call, then you might have 50 or 100 scanning servers, and you can reduce that dramatically, because this is real time of one of our customers. They had 2,200 scanning servers. It was a big financial, and they reduced that. So the solution basically paid for itself. But even for smaller environments, if you scale down from 6 to 2 servers, that already has significant cost savings. So use case 2 for our agent-based solutions is endpoint and servers. Each brain is on each client. So that means for detection, we don't need any cloud connection. It's not needed. Just for management, we have a cloud connection. No file is ever leaving the device. The system load is below 1%, while, for example, a Microsoft Defender has usually 25 to 27%. So what is the real value? We have low system resource consumption. We don't send any files to the internet. But most important, we prevent threats instead of creating detection and response. So either we replace what you have today. Let's say you have an endpoint solution, you want to get rid of it. Or you have an endpoint solution, a next generation one like a CrowdStrike or a Microsoft. Most people we met have actually Microsoft, but you say, it's not enough because Microsoft creates a lot of logs, a lot of SOC alerts, the system load is too high, and the security is not good enough. So you can keep it because it might be part of your E5 license and it does a few other great things, but you put us in as a primary scanner and you put Microsoft Defender in as a secondary scanner. So what happens is the system load of 2 scanners together, because we take work off Microsoft, goes down to 1%. The SOC alerts get down by 1/3. The logging goes down by 1/3, and your security increases. So we have lots of customers, even beyond 100,000 users, which use that together with an EDR solution to have especially ransom protection. We have lots of customers in the 2,000 to 5,000 user space who use it together with an EDR solution to have the highest possible security, because a ransom payment might cost millions of dollars. You don't want to pay this. Especially in other organizations like government, education, healthcare, they say, well, I don't have staff to operate a SOC, or I don't want to actually cloud connect, have my files sent to cloud. And what you do then is you just use us instead of an EDR solution, right? So it works standalone on server or clients. It works as well together with Microsoft Defender and others. And we have lots of implementations with that and lots of happy customers, which even can realize cost savings by installing us together with Defender due to the mentioned performance improvements. We had one customer in Austria, and they had such a high system load on their endpoints that they had to replace 1,000 laptops. So, but instead of doing this, they implemented us on the 1,000 laptops. The system load of Defender went down, and the laptops had enough performance that they can now still use it for another 12 to 18 months. So it delayed an investment because of performance. So it has a big impact. So this is also real life benchmarking, and we can share also the customer names of detection rates. And this is really, really not marketing bullshit. We can prove it. And if you want to do a proof of value with us, we can prove how we do against the Defender. We can prove how we do against whatever vendor you have. And those numbers here are more than realistic. Efficiency is basically the threat detection rate. And this is provable, repeatable. And that should be shocking for everyone if you see that leading vendors in the market, which in the presentation and the recording, I don't share the names, but happy to do that offline. This is the detection rate. This is horrible. So many threats go through. And in the end, if just the wrong ransomware goes through, you really have a problem. So predictive prevention basically helps you to reduce the total cost of ownership because logging, because of high likelihood to pay a ransom, because of lower SOC efforts and lower system load. It delivers a privacy no other vendor does because all of them kind of need cloud connection and send files back and forth. It is definitely the fastest solution in the market in both scanning of threats, also in system load, creating the lowest one. Integration is relatively seamless, very flexible, containerized, on-prem, however you want to do it. And this is the only solution in the market which does not do detection and response, but predictive prevention, preventing it in memory, preventing it before it goes to disk, predicting it, foresee that this is a threat. With our brain, which is 4 years old and not updated. I mean, we have it updated slightly over the years, but a 4-year-old brain catches every ransomware ever developed as of today. No ever ransomware ever in the wild was able to pass a 4-year version old of our brain. This is how good the solution is, besides of marketing. Yeah, this is just the marketing blah blah. I wanna basically skip that, but there is a few customers we have that might be pretty interesting. Banking space, all areas actually, but we are actually in each industry: healthcare, government, education, industry, car manufacturing, whatever. You name it, basically. With that, I say thank you for listening, and I give it back to Andres for Q's and A's and the discussion.